Hey guys, how's it going? Dogway here, bringing you another Duel Links video. This time we're finally doing a September meta analysis. Compared to the last season, the August season, the meta has changed a lot, obviously. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and check out the tier list that I made for this video. So here's the tier list. For the tier S, we have a new king of the meta. It's the 3-star demotion Twin Barrel deck. So this deck is just so powerful. To a point, I kind of feel is a bit unfair. If you open with Twin Kingdom and also Twin Barrel Dragon, it's very hard for any kinds of deck to have an out to the board. Like they have to deal with Twin Kingdom first, and after that, the Twin Barrel Dragon still remains on the field. So you have to deal with the Twin Barrel Dragon still. And also they play 3 copies of the Rare Metaphor. The card is so strong, it can negate cards like Soul Exchange and also Enemy Controller. But don't forget it also boosts monsters by 500 attack, which means that now the Twin Barrel Dragon will become 3100. So that's just a scary number. Let's take a Red Eyes deck as an example. If you are playing a Red Eyes and now you have 2 Red Eyes on the board, with beatdown, both of your Red Eyes will become 3000 attack. But that's still not enough. You're still not gonna run over the Twin Barrel Dragon with Rare Metaphor. So that's why I consider this is a bad matchup for Red Eyes. It's not only for Red Eyes, it's that a lot of decks don't really have an out to Twin Barrel Dragon, either with Twin Kingdom or Rare Metaphor. So this is definitely the most powerful deck right now in the meta. Now let's move on to tier 1. For tier 1, the first deck here is of course the Red Eye Zombie. It's still a pretty strong deck in the meta. Of course it's still relevant. But again, just simply because it doesn't have a good matchup against the 3-star demotion Twin Barrel Dragon, so it has fallen to the tier 1. If you want to have a chance against the new tier S deck, you probably need to tech in some tier cards. I've seen people play cards like Storm or even Magic Deflector to deal with the Twin Kingdom, and also Rare Metaphor. Not Rare Metaphor, sorry, the normal Metaphor, so that you can run over any kinds of big monsters, including the big ass ninjas, Invader of Darkness, and of course the Twin Barrel Dragon with Rare Metaphor. So these are all the common tech cards that you should expect to see in Rare Zombie deck. Next we have the Destiny Draw Mausoleum deck. So this deck is another solid deck. It has a decent matchup against the Red Eyes, and also many decks don't really have an out to Invader of Darkness, so sometimes a single Invader of Darkness can just win you the game on his own. So a pretty solid deck. The deck also runs the Lava Golem, which means if you play against a 3-star demotion deck, there's a chance if they use the 3-star demotion deck and they have 2 monsters on the board, you can get a lethal with your Lava Golem. So always pay attention to that. Overall, a pretty solid deck, definitely a tier 1 deck here. Next we have the Psychic deck. So Psychic has finally risen to tier 1. The thing about Psychic is of course they have the best search monster in the game, the Serene Psychic Witch, and also the best removal spell in the game, Psychokinesis. With these 2 cards, the power level of Psychic archetype has risen to a point that we start to consider it a tier 1 deck. And there are many different skills that are compatible with Psychic. You can run normal token resist, you can run Destiny Draw, you can run Bandit. I've even seen access denied, even live code 0. A lot of skills. But again, the problem with Psychic is that if you don't open with Serene Psychic Witch, you're gonna have a rough time in that match. So, but it's still a pretty solid deck. Definitely a tier 1 deck here. The last tier 1 deck here we have 3-star Demotion Ninja. So this is probably the hardest deck to play with right now in the game. It has a lot of potentials, a lot of combos, a lot of interactions between all the cards. Black Dragon Ninja is a very interesting card. It has a relatively complicated text compared to all other cards in Duel Links right now. So again, this deck is kind of aggressive, and if your opponent is playing passive, you can punish them with your Red Dragon Ninja. And with all those ninja trap cards, you can potentially attack multiple times with your monster in a single turn to perform OTKs. So this deck is a pretty good deck, but it's not that easy to play compared to all the other decks right now in Duel Links. So in the right hand, this deck it's definitely more powerful compared to when it's played by normal players. So definitely pay attention to this one. Move on to tier 2. We have Sacred Phoenix. Again, Phoenix. Last season I already put Phoenix in tier 2. In this season, I don't specifically feel like it has got worse, but it definitely didn't get better. It still remained the same spot in the meta. But compared to last season, I kind of feel that right now you have to run beatdown instead of a restore. Just simply because beatdown helps you run over Twin Barrel Dragon, and also makes it better for you in the matches against Red Eyes. So even though restore can potentially help you with the break, but I think beatdown now has more value here. But again, now people have got used to playing against Phoenix compared to last season. So it's probably gonna be tougher and tougher for the Phoenix players. But again, this deck is still meta relevant, I would say. Still tier 2 deck. Next one, we have the Standard Tunes. Again, another deck that has fallen from tier 1 to tier 2 simply because the tier S deck runs a Toon monster. That means you lose a big win condition. The win condition for Standard Toon deck is that you want to attack your opponent directly with your Toon monsters. But now, if other meta decks play Toon monster, so that means you cannot attack your opponent directly anymore. So that's gonna be a big problem. But again, this is a cheaper version of Toon deck. Cheaper version Toon deck, so you should still expect a lot of players play this deck on ladder. A lot of decks still don't have an out to Toon Kingdom, so I would say this deck is still kind of relevant, even though the tier S deck is a hard counter to it. But you definitely need some tech cards. Like I've seen people play Divine Wrath in the Standard Toon deck to counter Twin Barrel Dragon and many other effect monsters. So again, not a tier 1 deck anymore, but still relevant. Next we have Mako Hammershare deck. So this deck, you might argue that this deck, why this deck is still on the list, but I would say many people overlook this deck. They underestimate this deck. I think Mako is still pretty relevant in meta. Like So right now we don't really have that many bits on deck. So right now the most bits on deck are like big monster bits on, like the ninja, like the red eyes. But the Mako is a relatively old deck and it's more close to the standard bit on deck. What's good about the deck is that of course they have a lot of the small water monster that can serve different functions. Like Yomi Ship is a good card against cards like Invader of Darkness, and also Lost Breaker can deal with Tomb Kingdom and a lot of spell trap cards. So I think this deck is still pretty good. But again, you probably wanna take in some tail cards just to counter other meta decks. So just don't underestimate Mako Hammer Shock. It's also a pretty cheap deck, so pay attention to this one. People still gonna run this one on ladder. Next we have Balanced Red Eyes. So again, another cheaper version deck. This time is a cheaper version Red Eyes deck. This deck I already put this deck at tier 1 that in the August season. Here it's still tier 1, but I think it has got more popular. Its popularity has risen just simply because now more people have access to Red Eyes Insights thanks to the ranked reward tickets, and they don't necessarily have multiple wyverns. And with this deck, with the concept, you only have to play one wyvern. Even zero wyvern is also fine. But the weaknesses of this deck are still there. So again, it's not really that consistent, even with balance. Of course, you can still open with multiple Champions Vigilance and Insights, and you're probably gonna win anyway. But that's not gonna always be the case. So sometimes you're still gonna break really hard. And also this deck is not aggressive, so if you don't open with an instant hand and you only have one red eyes, keep attacking every single turn, your opponent will probably have a way to stall until they can deal with your back rows. So that's gonna happen very often. And also again, you only have 3 spirits and maybe 1 additional wyvern miss. At most you have 4 red eyes in every single game that you can generate. So if in a game the opponent manages to deal with all 4 of your red eyes, you just lose out there. So sometimes you even see a red eye balanced deck decks out and lose. So it's very common. It's one of the biggest weaknesses of this deck. So that's why I only put it at tier 1, even though Champs Visions is such a good card. The last tier 2 deck here we have the control deck. So the control deck here refer to all kinds of control decks, mostly balance control and also mice game control. All those kind of common control decks. The reason control deck has fallen to tier 2 is because they don't really have that good of a matchup against higher tier decks. Like for example, against Spirit of Demotion Twin Barrel Dragon, it's just a pretty bad matchup. Like you have to deal with Twin Kingdom, then you have to deal with Twin Barrel Dragon. Otherwise, you're just gonna get your card destroyed by the Twin Barrel Dragon. So it's just so hard for control deck to win that matchup. And for tier 1 deck, it's still decent against red eye zombies, but against decks like Death Tendril, Mausoleum, it's another tough matchup. You need to take in cards like Metaphor to have an efficient way to deal with Invader of Darkness. Otherwise, you're just gonna get overwhelmed by that card. Against Psychic, again, not really that good of a matchup. Just simply because as a control deck, you don't really have an efficient way to play around Serene Psychic Witch. So you're probably gonna trigger it anyway. And if they bring out Destruction, it's gonna be very hard to deal with. And also psychokinesis can take care of your monsters. So if you're a control player, you know once your monster gets destroyed, it's gonna be very hard for you to play the rest of the game. So another bad matchup I would say against Ninja is okay, I guess, but again, if you start kind of passive, like if you just set the Guardian statue, you're probably gonna get punished really hard by the Red Dragon Ninja. And also, if you don't start with a lot of back rows, like if you only have 2 back rows and 1 monster, and again, Red Dragon Ninja is gonna be a pain in the ass. So it's still not a good matchup. So the only good matchup for control decks in the higher tier is only the Red Eye Zombies. So that's why the deck has fallen to tier 2. So let's probably follow a tier list. But again, this is only my personal opinion. Please leave your comments in below to let me know if I missing anything here. And again, thank you so much for watching the video. If you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, you can subscribe to my channel for more future Duel Links videos. And again, this is Dog Ray. Have yourself a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, boys.